Yep, push. It's over the edge now. I think I got it.
Okay, so what we did was we installed the gasket, which obviously we started off in the center and we worked our way out from there. The center lower, start and work your way out. And we used some really clever tools in order to, these snap-on pick tools are probably our favorite tools in the whole shop, really. It's just the most, so useful. So to explain this before all of this dries up is we did saturate this with Dawn soapy water. And there is a seam. You have to be very careful when you install the gasket. There is a seam here right in the center, and that's where the lock strip is going to go. You don't want that thing to be haphazardly placed on the side or up above. It just looks like it's not professional. So you got to put the gasket seam where it belongs. Now we've got the center lock strip, which we have a center lock strip tool to guide the center lock strip in. And again, that seam is going to be right there with the center piece going across. So we're going to start here, and we're going to pull the lock strip up and around, and we're just going to, the corner's going to be the hardest, but it's actually going to work out pretty well. So I'll do a video of that, no more time lapses for this, and we'll see how hard this really is. Yeah, basically we're just going to, you're going to be continually curving it like this, this whole curve. And as you curve it around, it kind of helps define. Let me get it started, because I can do that myself. See something like that, like really taut. And that way, yeah, see, bingo. Before we go too far, I want to make sure that it's actually right in the center. So if I have to push it a little bit more that way, the lock strip center, the center will actually do a lot of the work there. So, okay. So, feeding it to me because I don't have to reach for it. Here we go. So yeah, this is actually a really difficult skill to learn. And if that lock strip tool comes out one time, that means you have to go back and fix it later, which is really, really difficult to do and get that in. So you want to try keeping that lock strip tool wedged in there as much as you possibly can, and just keep on pushing. And as you're pushing, just feed that lock strip through the hole on the lock strip tool, and it almost kind of guides it right through. The length of the lock strip should be perfectly set to match right in the middle where it began, with a tiny bit of space for you to put that lock strip piece that we're trying to get on right there that you can see. And then this is really the hard part, is just getting the gasket to go around the lock strip at this point. Okay, what I need to do, just smooth all that out, but I think the hard work's done.
Stops.
And then it just stops. You gotta pull it back. The other one is worse, so
I did some of this stuff in portrait mode for Instagram. But yeah, I made up my own little tool here to strip out the old rubber bushings from the trailing arms, temporarily welded right on it, and just kind of pushed it out with my Rockwell Draw Horse, which is my favorite tool. Then we painted the subframe and the trailing arms, and then we got them in. A little bit more on the exhaust later. You'll see more detail there. But here's us pressing the bushings in. And yes, I know that the brake dust shields are on backwards. I fixed that later. So don't worry about any of that. I did get it the right way later. And there's going to be a whole lot more we're going to talk about with those these bearings here. These are the rear hubs, and they come with a sleeve in case you have the larger bearing, which we do here. So we need to press that larger sleeve onto the hub shaft. You can see we're doing that with our press tool there. And now we can literally press the hub into the bearing like you normally would, and it worked perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna try doing this in one take. All right. So front end stuff. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so here we did on the front end. We did basically the entire front suspension has been updated. We're leaving the front coilovers because they are still good. We have our new hubs that we have to put on, our 5x120 hubs, new control arms. We reconditioned our front subframe. We updated the exhaust to add a oxygen sensor, and we've updated our hardware, and we've created a two-way link. Not a two-way link. It's a flange, so we can actually remove and install the exhaust. We've got we've removed our transmission bracket so we can put it into powder and or paint and blast. We can get it cleaned up. On the rear end, if you follow me here, did a lot of work on the rear end here. You can see that we've got our rear subframe and our rear trailing arms cleaned and painted. We've installed new bushings, poly bushings, and on our outside here we've got new brake dust shields and our new hubs. Now these hubs are going to be just like the front. These are E30 offset 5x120, 4x100 hubs. You can put a 5x120 wheel or 4x100 wheel on there and you'll be in great shape. We still have to rebuild the parking brake and we need to get that in. Now the one thing that's holding us back right now from getting this reinstalled is the fact that we don't have our medium brake lines. We don't have these in yet, so we cannot move forward until we get these things reinstalled. Then we can get the whole front rear subframe in and hook up all brake lines because our new brakes are coming in a couple of days. These new brakes are going to be the Wildwood 6-pot setup on the front, 4-pot on the rear, and it's going to be awesome. Big brakes for the wheels. So yeah, these are our wheels. We've got 215 45 16s on here, and these are on the 16x8 BBS style 5s. These are the E38 5x120 with a 23 millimeter offset. So it's going to be perfect. This new offset that we have is going to be perfect for the E30. It's going to be tucked in nicely. It's not going to poke out too much. And it's going to sit right inside the fender, which is exactly what my customer wants. So having said that, now you're all caught up on everything that we've done. And now we need to start working on the front engine bay. As you can see up here, we've got all of our front stuff completely removed from the car. Bumper, valence, that's all going to paint. And while that's going into paint, I'm going to clean all of this up and paint it myself as well. It's going to be that 086 black Schwartz color. Base clear we're going to do on the entire engine bay and the core support so that this thing looks near brand new. So as it turns out, swapping the sensors from left to right and adding the spacer that they provided was enough to give me the clearance that I need to, there you go, you can see right in there, that clearance is all you need in order to get this thing on. So let's put it on now and see how well it spins. So far, so good. Don't want to jam it in at first. You want to kind of just go a little bit and see how well it spins after that. No obstructions. No obstructions. Don't forget to dimple it too to prevent it from back spinning on you.
Now what we're doing is just slowly bringing the chassis down onto the rear end. The idea here is that it's sitting in the Rockwell Drill Horse there, and we're just bringing the car down onto the two main bolts that go into the subframe bushings there. And once you get them lined up, you just kind of use the weight of the car to push down onto them. And then we use the jack stand to push it all the way up, and then we use just a regular nut. Just put the nut on for now. We know that there's a washer on it, a retaining washer there that goes on the bottom side. We can put that in later. And then we're just putting the front end on and pour 15 the front brake dust shields to try to preserve its life since we didn't replace them. It wasn't really a need.
So now it's time to rewire our headlights. Normally we wouldn't need to rewire them, but this has the old style of headlight connectors. And now we're going to be going to new French Hellas, which is basically the European style. So we've got these connectors here with pigtails on them. We're going to cut them off and we're going to wire these high beam, basically positive, negative. Same thing with the low beam, to the old high beam and low beam on the wiring on the car, and change the connector so it just plugs right in. That's going to be pretty easy.
Rewiring this was actually really easy. The high beams were different. We just needed to cut off one of the high beam transfer wires that went over to the low beam because this is solely now a high beam. And all you have to do is just strip, then crimp, and then put a heat shield over it, heat shrink, and then tape it. And these are the H1 headlight connectors on both sides, and you're basically done. So this is now going to be plug and play.
So here's where we are with the engine bay. We've cleaned the entire engine bay. We've shaved off a lot of brackets. As you can see here, We've got the engine kind of just sitting in position, right? Everything is suspended on its own weight, which is good. We've taken everything out of the engine bay, and we've also even trimmed out the airflow meter bracketry and the cruise control bracketry because we don't need that anymore. We've taken the ABS pump out since we're going to be redoing the brakes anyway. We just had to take all of the fluid out of the brakes. And we started taking out all of our clips because we're going to end up painting this whole bay. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover the engine up, and we're going to paint everything in the bay with a base clear, which is going to be the 086 black. Yeah, we still need to fix all this and smooth this out and get it all nice and clean before we finish that up. But the engine bay is ready for all of that now. Let's talk a little bit about where we are with our hubs, because the brakes is really going to be the next thing that we do. And a lot of people have been asking me, what are you doing with the brakes? What's your big brake solution when you're dealing with an E30 offset 4x100, but you're putting on 5x120 wheels? So what rotors work with that? And I wanted to show you a couple of options. So we've got our fronts set up and ready to go to start installing our front rotors. So this is basically ready to go. As you can see, we've got our stainless steel brake line ready to go. Obviously, nothing is fully plumbed up, but that is done and ready to start experimenting with the front end rotors. And on the rear end, you can see that I did have to move the brake dust shield around. I got the parking brakes installed, and the rear hub is installed with the new cleaned up half shaft, so that is ready to go as well. And we need to install our rear end brakes. So let's start with the front end first and go from there. So as you can see here, using your eyes, watching this YouTube video that I've got my Wildwood 310 millimeter E30 M3 front brakes, and I got my E30 offset clips front hubs. And the idea is that this hopefully will end up mating right up here with no issues or interferences, front and rear. Now what I did was I got E30 M3 front and M3 rear, and hopefully we'll see. Ooh, not bad. Actually, this is not mating up flat against this. Shit. What is it? Oh my God, it's hitting the tie rod. It's hitting this. I can't even move it right now. I'll move the camera. Let's see. Is it hitting? Is it hitting? Oh yeah, that's a direct interference. The rotor needs to come out another 2 millimeters if it wants to be flat on this face. Shit, all right, what am I gonna do?